Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulillah. All praise is due to Allah, and may Allah's peace and blessings be on the last messenger of Allah. The topic of this afternoon, misconceptions or misunderstandings about Islam and Muslims, could also be called combating Islamophobia. This is a new term which was coined in the UK about a decade ago, where researchers in the UK looked into this phenomenon to determine whether a name could actually be put on it. Was it really a situation, a phobia, or was it something Muslims were exaggerating, making a lot of noise about, but really it had no reality? Well, the Runnymede report, which was published by non-Muslims in the UK, after studying the situation about Muslims in the UK, in Europe, etc., concluded that Islamophobia was a reality. Islamophobia meaning the irrational fear of Islam. Fear which is not based in reality, but a fear which has been concocted by different elements within Western society for different purposes. They found in their research that the main two areas where most of this distortion, misinformation, etc. came from were the media and the politicians. This is non-Muslims now analyzing the situation. It's not Muslims pointing the finger. This is non-Muslims analyzing this situation and concluding, after an in-depth analysis of incidents which took place and reports in the newspapers and issues that were going on, banning the veil and all these other kinds of things that were happening all across Europe, they concluded that this fear, this irrational fear of Muslims, was fed, created, and concocted by politicians and the media. Politicians who sought to divert the attention of the people from the real problems at hand in the situation, in the society. There are real problems that the society is faced with. By diverting their attention to something else, it relieved the pressure off themselves. Why would France go out of its way to ban the veil? Why? It doesn't seem rational. Why should it matter? Okay, it's the niqab. They banned the veil before that in public schools, in public places, or public administrations. But then they went up to the niqab and they said, they estimated that the total number of Muslims in France is someplace around 8 million, 9 million Muslims. And the total number of women who wore niqab would not exceed 2,500. Why are we going to pass a law for the whole country which bans something which is worn by such a small fragment of the society? It's not worth making all that effort about. But no, it was something big. It was expressed by the president himself, and laws were passed. Why? To divert people's attention from the real problems, economic problems in France. In the US, recently, 11 of the states, of the 52 states of America, passed a law banning Sharia. Banning Sharia. Can you imagine that? Why? Why ban Sharia? Who is practicing Sharia? I mean, in the sense of implementing Sharia in the United States of America. In the sense that they mean. Actually, most of these politicians, legislators who got together and banned Sharia, if you ask them what is Sharia, they would say bombing, fundamentalism, terrorism. These are all the big names that they would throw out. That's what Sharia is. They don't realize that Sharia is to pray 5 times a day. That's Sharia. That's practicing Sharia. To fast in the month of Ramadan. That's practicing Sharia. To give zakah. That's practicing Sharia. To go and make hajj. It's practicing Sharia. So then what? What are you saying here? See, this is political. Purely political. Because there is this backlash going on in American politics. They are playing on it to make themselves popular. The local people will say, yes, yes, you know, these are true red-blooded Americans. Yes, we have to vote for them. They're defending America against Sharia. Politics. We also have a group who have interests. Interests which are served through the media. That group in the West, in America in particular, but in the West in general, controls the movies. It controls the publications of books, the television programs. The media is in their hands. And every year, books are produced, articles are written, magazine articles are produced, movies are also created in which Muslims are portrayed as terrorists. The hero stops this Muslim from blowing up such and such. Or we see him saying Allahu Akbar and he stabs somebody. Or he shoots somebody else. Regularly. It's being pumped into the media on a continual basis. And of course, the Muslim who is shown there is always what? An Arab. It's an Arab Muslim. So whose interest is this about? In whose interest is it to portray Muslims in general as Arabs, even though they're only 20% of the Muslim world? The vast majority of Muslims are not Arabs at all. But in whose interest is it to portray Muslims as Arabs and as terrorists, violent, suicide bombers? Even though you've had far more suicide bombers here than all of the Muslims committing suicide bombing over the last umpteen years. The specialists in suicide bombing came from Sri Lanka, right? But somehow we don't find Sri Lankans labeled. Wherever you go, as soon as they hear Sri Lanka, they're thinking, a suicide bomber. No, we don't find that. Why? The media didn't pick that up and make that an issue. Because Sri Lanka, is a place of tourism, and this is the focus. We don't want to hurt the tourist industry, which is a global industry. There's no real benefit that would come from that. So then, in whose benefit is it? Well, Israel. No doubt. It is in the benefit of Israel to portray Arabs as these violent, vile, terroristic suicide bombers. It is in their interest. Why? Because America supports Israel. Without American support, Israel would not exist. That's reality. A portion of every dollar is spent looking after, taking care of, providing logistics, military machinery, etc. for Israel. A small country. 8 million people. Why? The media serves the purpose of defending Israel, keeping in people's minds the reason why they need to support Israel. Added to that, on the other side, this is not really so much related to us, is the issue of the Holocaust. The Holocaust you will find in some movies every year. The Holocaust. The massacre of Jews during World War II. You cannot go through a month without an article, a newspaper, headline, National Geographic, NBC, CNN, somebody's producing something about the Holocaust. To keep in the mind of Westerners, you owe it to us. You did this to us. You owe it to us. The shrine, the mausoleum for the Holocaust victims, made in Washington. Some Americans would ask, why? Why make a shrine dedicated to the Holocaust victims in Washington? Why not in Berlin? Isn't that more appropriate? Why Washington? If we're going to do a shrine for those who were killed unjustly, it should be for the Indians. The American Indians who were massacred on a much greater scale. But of course, the Native Americans have no representatives. Nobody was going to push their case that we should have a shrine there. Or black Americans brought in slave ships and died, millions. They deserve a shrine there. However, that is the media. Who controls the media determines what issues are of importance and what issues will be pushed. So we find that Islam is distorted in the media in general, and those involved in it either have hidden agendas or they are politicians who openly are seeking to divert people's attentions from the real issues in their countries. What this means, as the Runnymede report proposed, is that on one hand, Muslims must embrace politics. They cannot shy away from politics. They must engage themselves in politics. They must have representatives who will defend their issues, their cases. People who are Muslims in the real sense, who understand Muslim issues and will speak up on behalf of Muslims. They need to have that. Not politicians who have sold their soul, for dunya, who will sit quiet as Muslims suffer, but those who will stand up on behalf of Muslims when Muslim issues arise. They will speak up on behalf of the Muslims. They need this. And Muslims need to vote for them and to bring them into power so that they play a real role in the governance of the various countries. That's what should be. On the other hand, Muslims also need to embrace the press, the media. We can't afford to run away from the media. Yes, the media does write negative reports. And they like to sell papers. So it is the negative images which tend to draw people's attention to want to buy this paper or buy that paper. So what can we do? How can we engage the media? Well, we need to have open sessions with the press. We need to encourage the press to come and meet our speakers. We need to open our arms to the media, invite them in, let them ask whatever questions to our representatives in the community who can explain what really is the case concerning this or that. Whenever any international incident happens, we have something to say. We have people who are writing in the newspapers regularly expressing the Muslim point of view. We do need to engage the media. Yes, even in spite of that, they may still write negative things, but we have to keep trying. Because whether we try or we don't try, they're going to write. If we do try and a few do get impressed or do feel that they have something worth publishing here or there, then it gets published. So we have some positive feedback coming from our engagement with the press. But from an Islamic perspective, the distortion of information and political opposition is ancient. If we read the Quran as it describes what happened to the prophets of Allah when they came to their people, inviting them to worship one God, what did the people do? They abused them. They called them magicians. They described them as being inferior. They had no end of abuse which they poured on them. And no doubt, the political powers in those times, in the times of the various prophets who came, the political powers saw them as a threat. A threat which led Pharaoh to say, Ana Rabbukumul A'la. I am your Lord on high. I am the one. You should be worshiping me. Don't listen to Moses and who he's calling to. So, this is not new. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in 13 years in Mecca, lived through media distortion and abuse from the powers that be. He was a political threat. Though he wasn't calling for leadership, they offered him leadership. They offered him power. They offered him wealth, but he rejected it. His threat was an economic one. One which would no longer keep Mecca as the center of idolatry in Arabia. Mecca is the place where all of the Arab tribes had their gods. 360 of them around the Kaaba. If they were all destroyed and people were now told to worship only one God, then there would be no reason for the tribes of Arabia to come and make pilgrimage to Mecca anymore. And it was this pilgrimage to Mecca which made the Meccans, the Quraysh, the most powerful tribe in Arabia. The richest and most powerful. So the call to the one God threatened their position as leaders, rulers, the most powerful tribe in Arabia. So they sought to silence that call. So this is not anything new. In our times, we can say media distortion has its underground backers, those who are operating with an agenda while openly claiming otherwise. We also have distortion which we could call inadvertent distortion. The people are misreading what we're doing. People see us doing certain things and they assume it means other things. They judge our practices by their own societies. And of course, whenever we do that, we will misread, we will misunderstand people. We have to look at people's customs from their own perspective. Why do they do these things? So, it is not surprising that the media, when it considers Muslim requirement for women to wear hijab as oppression. Where in the West, women were liberated from hijab, from clothing in general. When they see Muslims all covered up, it's, oh, these poor things. Muslims are oppressing their women. This is how they've interpreted it. They haven't gone to try to understand what is the rationale behind it, etc. It's just the external. And usually whenever they want to talk about Muslim dress, they go to the most extreme, the burqa from Afghanistan, where the woman is just in a tent and they're just little holes. That's the image that they always like to portray. We also have a source of misunderstanding which we can only blame on ourselves. Muslim malpractices, where we have certain customs and traditions in certain parts of the Muslim world which have nothing to do with Islam at all. But the media picks it up and says Muslims. Muslims. The example of that is honor killing. Yes, in some places in the Muslim world, in Pakistan, Jordan, Turkey, some Muslim societies, people are hypersensitive to the honor of the family. That if someone were to do something to dishonor the family, it would cost them their lives. But the question is that Islam? Does Islam say that? Is it in Sharia? No. This is only the custom in certain societies. However, this has been generalized. Muslims are honor killers. They kill in the name of honor. They murder in the name of honor. Who do we blame? We can only blame ourselves, because this is the result of our own ignorance. If we were to look at the common distortions that exist in the media today, we would have to say that they may be grouped into three areas. One, Muslim beliefs. Two, Muslim religious practices. And three, Muslim social practices. In the area of beliefs, a common misunderstanding or misconception is that Allah is the God of Muslims. Allah is the God of Muslims. As Shiva may be the God of Hindus, Buddha the God of Buddhists, and so on and so forth. Different people have their own individual gods. However, Allah is not the God of Muslims. It is God. It refers to God, period. The creator, sustainer of the universe, who has no beginning or end, etc. The true God, who, when the Bible is translated into Arabic, wherever it said God in the English or in the Tamil or Sinhalese, in the Arabic Bible you will see Allah, because it was the term, an ancient term used in Arabic. It was not a term coined by Muhammad, may God's peace and blessings be upon him, a God of the Arabs. No. It was just the name for the one God. Also, people, when they see Muslims praying in Mecca, bowing down to this black cube, they conclude that Muslims worship the Kaaba. Muslims worship the Kaaba. And there are rumors that have circulated in some communities about this. I remember once traveling from Toronto to London, and the person sitting next to me was a Hindu, British, originally from India. And we got chatting. He came to know that I was a convert to Islam, originally from Jamaica. So, I knew about life in general. I wouldn't be upset if he asked certain questions. So he said to me, "Can I ask you a question? There's something that has been bothering me for a long time. I always wanted to ask about this from Muslims, but I was too shy to ask my Muslim friends. Because Muslim friends back in the UK, they're originally from India or Pakistan, whatever. And he was afraid that they would be so offended, they would be so upset that it may cause physical violence or something like this. So he kept quiet, he didn't ask. But he felt, okay, well, you're from Jamaica, you don't have these kind of issues, so, right? Can I ask? I said, sure, welcome. Ask me any question you want. Don't feel shy. It's all right. Go ahead. So he said, listen, all the time whilst I was growing up, my mother told me that actually inside of the Kaaba is our idol Shiva Lingam. And that's what all the Muslims around the world are actually worshipping. Shiva Lingam. I laughed. What could I do? I had to laugh. I said, no, that's not the case. That's not true. Your mom told you a story, fairy tale. Inside the Kaaba, it is empty. There's no gods inside of there. It is opened up every year. It is opened up and twice a year, and it is washed. And when it is opened up after its washing, people that are in that vicinity at the time go inside and pray inside of it, which is proof that it is not an object of worship. It's not an idol. Of course, Muslims in their homes, they have prayer mats with the Kaaba on it. They have pictures with the Kaaba, and that's the direction in which they're praying in their home. So the image of the Kaaba has become so much interwoven into Muslim social life that it is not surprising that non-Muslims may conclude that in fact we worship the Kaaba. This is our mistake. This is our mistake. So we can't really blame them for this misunderstanding. Only we clarify for them that this is a means of organizing worship. The way in which we worship, we bow. We bow. Now, if we didn't have one direction in which we are praying, two people end up standing facing each other, bowing, they would be bunking their heads together. This one would be hitting that one, and So obviously we need to have some kind of organized system which will be consistent around the world. So setting one place as the direction of the prayer is a means of organizing worship because of the nature of our worship. So the Kaaba is for organization of worship and not, in fact, an object of worship. Okay, it is time for Maghrib now. And I guess we got off to a little bit of a late start here. And the rest of the topic, maybe you'll have to go to YouTube and pick it up from there. We'll discuss in our Q&A after the prayer, inshallah, some of the issues that you may have concerning misunderstandings, which I can clarify, those that are particular to the circumstance here. Okay, so we'll stop here then. Barakallahu feekum.